Welcome to Enjoy the Journey podcast, where we interview expert entrepreneurs and thought leaders to help guide you in pursuit of financial freedom. Presented to you by Jackson Milan, the Wealth Mentor, and Sam Panetta, the Money Man, where we help service-based business owners remove cash flow bottlenecks, maximize their profits, and turn business profits into personal wealth. G'day guys, this is Jackson Milan, the Wealth Mentor, and I'm here for another expert masterclass with Marc from Destiny Rescue. So Marc was recently introduced to me through the BX network, and we wanted to take an opportunity to do a little bit of a deep dive into what Destiny Rescue have been up to. It's a phenomenal cause, and I believe that a lot of you are going to get a lot of value out of this conversation we're going to have today, to be able to find a little bit more around some of the organizations out there like Destiny Rescue that are actually playing an active role in changing the lives of people around the world. So I'm joined here with Marc today, and we're going to have a bit of a conversation around what Destiny Rescue is all about and some of the impact that they're creating. So Marc, thanks for joining us, mate. How are you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing well. Thank you very much for having me on your show. I really appreciate that.
Happy to help, mate. So tell us a little bit about Destiny Rescue.
Yes, Destiny Rescue is a not-for-profit organization that actually got started here in Southeast Queensland, out of the Sunshine Coast of all places, about over 18 years ago. And it was started by a gentleman called Tony Kerwin. And Tony, how it started, the genesis of it all started, he was in a bar in Thailand, and he overheard a guy bragging about how he got offered a child to have sex with. And that really affected him. And, you know, him as a father of at that stage, 2 young girls, it really affected him. And then when he went back to Australia, he started really researching it and realizing that there's a huge problem at the moment in the world when it comes to child trafficking. And I'll just jump in at the moment, like according to the World Labour Organization, when we think trafficking, there's about 14 million people that have been forced into slavery. And so a lot of times when we use this word slavery, people think, automatically we think what happened in the 17 and 1800s where people were taken from Africa, forcibly taken into America and to England and other parts to work as slaves. And in those days, a slave would cost about $45,000 US. So it was a rich man's game, if you want to put it that way. But now, unfortunately, we have a situation where you can buy a human being for as little as $19 US.
Wow.
So and that's why it's such a huge problem where you've got 40 million people, according to World Labour Organization, that have been trafficked and on slavery. And then a good 10 million of that is children. And the predominant part of that is actually trafficked into sex trafficking, where these children are used and abused. And so Destiny Rescue, we've rescued children from as young as an 18-month-old baby, all the ages through past 18 years. So,
Wow.
and over from 2011 is when we started counting, because we were just so busy expanding into different countries. We are operating in 8 different countries at the moment. And so from 2011 is when we started counting. And from 2011, we've rescued up to date just over 5,200 children and individuals. So it's last year we rescued about 1,426.
Wow, that's phenomenal.
And so, yes, it's really kept us busy. So with Destiny Rescue, just kind of jumping in there,
Sure.
How we work, I'll just give you a very synopsis how we work. Is we go, what makes us different from any other organizations out there, we actually go undercover and we go and look for these children in brothels and bars and every dark hole you can think of. And we'll physically go look for them and then we'll rescue them out of that. And so our rescues are called, we've got covert rescues, and you've got to excuse my South African accent.
That's okay.
When I use the word covert, people think I'm saying COVID, but no, it's covert covert rescues, where we'll go undercover into all of these places and we'll find children and then we'll rescue them out of there. And then we've got another part which is called raid rescues, where we work with federal agencies and different police agencies from other countries, where we'll actually set up a raid, where we'll still go in undercover, but with these agencies, we'll set up a raid where we don't just rescue one individual, but we actually go in and the whole place gets closed down, the owners get thrown in jail, and all the children and everybody that's been trafficked in there gets released. And so those are the 2 main differences. But once they're rescued, they go also to our rescue centers. So we've got rescue centers where they'll get medical help, they'll get trauma counsel. And then through that, we also start going through a process, what we call vocational training, where we start looking at which is the areas they'd like to go. We'll help them with education and everything like that, but we actually believe in the principle, feed a man a fish, you feed them for one day, but you teach them how to fish, you'll feed them for them and their families for the rest of their lives. So then we actually help them, set them up where they can actually choose their own destiny. And that's why we call Destiny Rescue.
That's beautiful. Wow. Where to start, mate? This is just, it blows my mind. And I think that the thing that was most shocking to me is that I only become aware of this through a documentary that I watched probably not even a year ago. And all of this stuff is not in the mainstream media. And I think all of us this is kept out of sight, out of mind. And I think for the general population, we don't really understand the extent of this issue. Now, I guess firstly, Mike, how did you get involved in the organization? What's your story?
Yes. So my story is that one of my best mates were one of the first ones to move with his family to Thailand, to help in Thailand. So I'll quickly tell you, we've got 8 different nations we're involved in. So we've got Thailand, Cambodia, the Philippines, we've got Dominican Republic, and then we've got a few other nations which we call undisclosed nations, purely because of political sensitive reasons. They don't like to be drawn into the fact that they've actually got problems with sex trafficking.
I understand.
So we don't disclose them, but we're in other nations as well. So he moved with his family to Thailand to go and help there at Destiny Rescue. And so my wife and I actually became involved by funding, by donating to them and to Destiny Rescue. And that's how our journey started. And then a couple of years later, I got a phone call out of the blue, and they said, "Marc, do you want to do more?" And I immediately said yes. And then as I said yes, I said, "Oh, wait a minute. I'm first going to talk to my wife. I better double check on this." But they asked me to join, and I joined them, and I just see it as such a privilege to be part of such an awesome organization.
Yeah, definitely.
And kind of diving into it. So from that point of view, I've had the privilege to. We've got in all our different nations, we've got permanent undercover agents. We'll go in undercover and find them. And I've had the privilege to go on a couple of undercover works with our permanent undercover guys. And so my story is, I've been in Pattaya in Thailand, and I've been in Cambodia and Phnom Penh, and I've done undercover work. And why I can do, and all our other guys can do undercover work, because the perpetrators all look like me. So what you have in this industry, this is the fastest illegal growing industry in the world. And it's the second largest illegal industry in the world. And so a lot of organizations, crime organizations, have worked out. So if you've got, for example, a drug dealer, so they first got to produce the drugs, and it's usually in some dodgy, dingy place in some country. And then they've got to have the whole supply network to get it to, say, for example, if I'm a user. So they've got to go through this whole supply chain to get it to me. And then I shoot up or snort up or whatever, and it's done, and they've got to get it back to me again. The whole process starts over again. But with human trafficking, and specifically sex trafficking of children, what these guys have worked out is they can take a child, put the child there, and people will fly from all over the world to that child. And that child will produce for them over and over and over and over that same child. Now, according to the World Labour Organization, they guesstimate that the life expectancy of these children are about 7 years.
Wow.
So it's a brutal game for these kids to come into, and it's just brutal how they get there. If you don't mind, I'll use an example. We've got so many stories, obviously, because we've been doing this for over 18 years. But my own story is I went into in Pattaya. I went into a bar, and these famous streets where even tourists will walk up and down, and then you've got all of these bars that walk up and down, and you've got all of these bars where they're bars, but they're actually brothels, where people will go in and out. And so we were undercover in one of these bars, and I was sitting there, and I won't give too much away of what we do process-wise, but we basically look like any other sex tourist that's gone in there. We've learned over time. Our guys in the beginning, knives have been pulled out on them, shots fired at them, but we learned over time how the best way to do this, and we blend in as if we belong there. We're there for a good time type of thing. And so anyway, I'm sitting next to this young girl, and I'll just, not her real name. We protect all our girls that we rescue. So her name is, I'll just call her Sugi. That's just a made up name. And so Sugi is there, and I'm sitting next to Sugi, and I'm talking to her, And she's kind of opening up a bit to me, and I asked her, quietly, while there's a lot of noise, a lot of things happening around us, I asked her, how did you get here? And and she kind of said, well, 4 months before me sitting there next to her, 4 months before, she was schoolgirl, had a younger sister, 10-year-old younger sister with her, both going to school, both parents are working. And then unfortunately for the unspeakable thing happens, her dad suddenly dies. And so now she could see there's financial pressure. She's still young, but you could just see her mum's panicking and there's financial pressure on the family. And so out of her own, she told her mum, you know what, how about I step out of school and I'll go and see if I can find work in the bigger cities. So I'll just go and I'll just see if I can find work as either go work in a restaurant, washing plates or doing something just to bring extra income. And so therefore my 10-year-old sister can still stay in school. So here she goes. And unfortunately, what happens to a lot of them, she goes to the big city, and a lot of times these crime rings will set up at certain places where they know, like mass transporters, and she climbs off a bus, and somebody comes to her. But anyway, long story short, they give her a promise that, oh no, they've got a job for her at this restaurant. Next minute, she's railroaded into working at this bar and forced to work in this bar where she's selling her little body to dirty johns that come flying from all over the world. So, here I'm sitting next to this girl, and I looked at her, and I just said, Suki, if this didn't happen to you, what was your dream? What was your dream while you were still at school? What did you want to do? And I mean, well, the heartbreaking thing is you've got this girl, and I could see what she was about to tell me, she believed was over, never, ever going to happen in her life. And she said, well, her dream was to become a teacher one day. So I'm going, and that's where I realized, if it's not for the work that we do, but for me, the biggest driver behind it is we've got donors. If it wasn't for those donors who are in the whole story, and I'll say it a few times, but for me, the big heroes are the people, moms and dads, that are willing to put their hand in their pocket and donate money to us so that we can be there next to the Sugis of this world, to give them opportunity. And that's why we call Destiny Rescue, because these girls that we rescue, we put them through these programs where they, at the end of the day, they can choose their own destiny. They're not forced into something that they never dreamt as a child to do. And like I said, we get girls from all sorts of walks of life. And I keep on going on. Just you tell me to stop.
Oh, wow. I'm just trying to take it all in, Marc. And so it seems to me that from what you've said, Thailand is obviously a hot spot for this type of activity.
Not just Thailand. There's through the whole of Southeast Asia. Like I said, we're in the Dominican Republic as well. It's kind of all over the world. But Thai, if you look at Southeast Asia, is like the biggest hot spot for this type of thing. And like I said, you've got people traveling in from all over the world. You've got Germans, and I look like the typical perpetrators there. And for us, why we got involved with it is for us, it's a Western created problem. We created the demand, so therefore we as Westerners should go and fix this up.
We're responsible for it. We've got to fix it.
That's exactly right. And for us, it's like we can't say, oh, this is too big a problem, because according to the World Labour Organization, like I said, there's about 10 million and then you've got 1.2 million, according to them, that gets trafficked every year into this reprehensible industry. But for me, is you can't say it's too big and can't do anything about it. And so it's like the old story, there's the story of this guy walking on the beach, and he sees another guy there, and all these thousands of starfish have washed out. And you can see this guy bending down, taking his starfish and throwing it in the ocean, bending down again, taking another one, throwing it in another. And he came to the guy and said, what are you doing, mate? This is futile. This is exercise of futility. Because you can't save all of them. And he said, no, I can't. But went down and picked up another one. I can't. But this one, it's 100%, and throws it back in the ocean. And that's for us. It's always about the one. It's always keeping our eyes on that we do what we can do. And that's how we got to over 5,200 rescues. Wow. And we want to do way more, because we can see the needs out there. And it's to bring change in people's lives. We've got, and the horrific stuff these girls have got to go through. Like, I'll just throw another quick story for you. Cass, once again, not real name, but Cassie. So Cassie was just a 14-year-old girl, and this brings to me how these kids get there. And it is because of poverty that is the main driver. And so you'll get different groups that will actually, they'll target the poorest families and towns and different places and actually target purposely to get those children trafficked. So Cassie, and sometimes, it's only a small percentage of parents that actually sell their kids. A lot of times, so Cassie was part of a big family. She's 14-year-old and her parents were farmers and they were just battling, and they said, Cassie, you've got to help us as a family. How about you find a job? So she's just in a local town looking for a job. And then one of her friends said, why don't you go to the bigger city? There should be more opportunities there. And same story again. Like I said, she got a hitch a ride on a back of a ute, and the ute took her into the city. This was actually a bigger town. We took her into a bigger town and dropped her off at a bus stop. But the bus stop has got around it, it's got like a half moon shape. It's got these basically bars all chatted around it. As soon as she got dropped off, somebody walks out one of the bars and says, hey, are you looking for work? She says, yes, naive 14-year-old. No idea what's going to happen to her. And the person, this was a mama son, a lady from the, that works at these bars, and said, come, I've got a job for you. It's an easy job. But anyway, long story short, she gets taken into these premises and then basically gets forced to work in this industry. And how they forced her is 4 guys gang raped her to break her in. And basically every time she would try and fight back, they beat her up. And they kept on gang raping her until she gave in. And basically did this until we found her. And then our guys found her and started talking to Casey. And sometimes when we go undercover, we'll have to visit these girls about 3, 4, 5 times even, because in the beginning, they think we're just another dirty John that's there. They've got no clue who we are, and because we've got to try and keep our identity. But after a few visits, our guys quietly showed her on their phones, just like, listen, this is who we are. We want to rescue you. Do you want to be rescued? Because we've got to get their permission. When you meet these girls, everything in you just want to grab this girl and run out with her, but you can't, because otherwise it's abduction. You're doing basically the same thing that happened to them in a sense. So we'll just take. So we asked, and she said yes, and right there, and then she stood up and basically walked out with us. And basically, what we do is we'll pay a bar fine and say, okay, we're going to abuse her in a hotel room. And these owners don't give a rip, these places. Like for them, there's no difference for them selling a bottle of beer and selling a child. No difference. It's for them just another commodity. And so we just booked her out and then disappeared. She jumped in on the back of one of our guys' bikes, and we rode off to our rescue center and, got there and usually we'll phone ahead or text ahead. And then some of the other girls that have been rescued come down to meet the girl. And just this sheer elation on her face. And she was full of joy and really happy to see these other girls. And we found out she actually still, when we rescued her, wasn't sure if we were telling the truth.
Wow.
Because her trust were broken so much, but it was so bad for her that she was willing to take this chance to go with total strangers and just hope and pray that it's
glimmer of hope.
Yes, that's right.
So how old was she at the time when you guys found her?
Sorry?
How old was she at the time when you guys found her?
She was 14 years old.
So, okay.
So we had found her. She had already been a couple months into it.
Okay.
And, like the Philippines is one of the other nations that we're involved in. And we actually, our director of the Philippines, one of the things that drives him, one of these first rescues he was involved with I think it was a 12-year-old girl. And we rescued her, and she was, overjoyed. And then next minute, she just got this real serious look, and she looked at him and she said, "Where were you 4 months ago when I was trafficked? Where were you when I was calling out for help and nobody was listening to me?" And in her case, she as well, she cried out for help, but it fell on deaf ears. And just want to bring a point of difference here. What makes us different from a lot of awesome organizations out there that work with trafficking and do an amazing job. And we need as many help as we can. So please hear what I'm saying and not what I'm not saying. So there's some amazing organizations that we work with that do a brilliant job. Sure. But what makes us uniquely different from other organizations is, and I'll use this example, is like you get the surf lifesaving here in Australia, right? You get the national arm, which does all the advertising, and they do a fantastic work of education, and they'll say, swim between the flags, watch out for the rips, all very important work. Even for tourists, they'll be careful of this, and they're a brilliant job. But in the day, if you're in the water and you're drowning, you want a lifesaver right there with you. And 100%. That's us. We go into dark alleys to the places no tourists will even dream of going into.
Wow.
And we'll go look for these girls and we'll rescue them.
So this is
And
a
like
very
in her case,
hands-on.
we found her and rescued her.
This is a very hands-on approach, Mark, and I guess it must take a particular type of person to be able to obviously hold the persona and step into the persona that is required to keep up appearances, but also find the balance between, as you mentioned before, you're just grabbing them and running off to try and save them on the spot. So what is, and obviously without giving too much away, what is the process involved with getting prepared for stepping into that role?
Well, see, our guys get, firstly, they get trained up to do the work, and we get help from special forces guys and so forth to train our guys, because it is a dangerous situation we place ourselves in. We're there to disrupt somebody's business, and these guys are all criminal elements. They don't take kindly to you interrupting the business. So, but we've learned over time really what works and what doesn't, and what gets us ready is we and even afterwards, once we've done a raid, we're always, the guys will talk to each other, and we've also got a system set in place where they can actually just unload with a type of a counselor. We've got a counselor in place that actually deals with the guys as well, and specifically with the staff, not just the rescue guys, but also the staff that helps with our social workers and our community workers that work with the journey with the girls from that point onwards. And so we give them opportunity to be able to basically open up and talk about things, and you've got to be able to talk. And like, for example, my cases, when I went on my undercover work with the permanent undercover guys, I told my wife, listen, I've got to be able to talk to you openly about what I see. And it was hard for her to hear the stuff I was seeing. Sure. But that part of it is just a clear line of communication, allowing the guys to debrief, talk through it. But what keeps us focused is we know it is that one life. We can make a difference in that one life's change. And, it's reminded me of, I'll just use, not different persona, but our head of our international head of all our raids. We've got a head there, and he's one of the guys that was involved right from the beginning with Tony Kerwin. And so he we were talking a couple of weeks ago, and he just shared a story that, because what we've done is we've separated the undercover rescue agents. Once they rescue a girl in place and take her to our rescue centers, that's the last time the girls see the guys, right? And then, because we purposely to protect identities of both sides, and we just worked out this is the safest way to do it. So, and he had to go to he flew from northern Thailand to Bangkok that late that evening to fly the first thing that morning out to one of our undisclosed nations that are unfortunately convention. And he didn't want to do it. He was tired. And he said, I was just tired. I was grumpy. And I was just going, man, it feels, I know we make a difference in these girls' life, but, how much of a difference we're making, because we've separated them so they wouldn't know what happens with them. And he couldn't sleep, and he was in this cheap motel, just waiting, just in the airport district, there, international airport district in Bangkok. And he thought, I can't sleep. Well, he just got up and remembered seeing a 7-Eleven just down the road. So he walked to the 7-Eleven to go and get a bottle of water. And as he came closer to the 7-Eleven, next minute, he hears his name called out. And he's like, what's going on? And he's looking, and he sees from the 7-Eleven. And there's these two figures running towards him. And as they came closer, he saw it's these two girls that he personally was involved in rescue 5 years before in northern Thailand. And they're running to them, hugging him, and he's going like, oh my goodness, like, of all places, in the middle of literally nowhere, at 1 o'clock in the morning. And then he goes, oh no, did they somehow get in trouble? What are they doing? And he said, what are you doing here, girls? And they said, no, we work here. We work as nurses. And they pointed to the hospital. So we work as nurses here. And fantastic. And what he didn't realize, because we've got a separation to keep everybody safe, they came into our rescue centers after he rescued them, and Destiny Rescue paid for them to do their nursing.
Fantastic, beautiful.
And they became nurses here in the middle of nowhere. And this is the kicker of it all. So he's telling it, and next minute they see this couple suddenly walking towards them, and the girls turn around and say, hey guys, this is the guy we were talking to you, and they were right there at that moment telling this couple their rescue story and about this guy that rescued them.
Wow.
And there he comes walking in. So just talk about the serendipity of it all.
Sure.
So it's so our guys, yes, there's different processes we put around them. It's about open communication, but sometimes it's tough because you see things in these places, and you'll see things. Sometimes things are done right in front of you, like you can't believe, and it's everything in you to know it's about this girl next to me, and it's all about her. I cannot focus on that, because if I focus on that, I want to go there and take that guy and drive his head through the wall.
Sure.
But that's not what it's about. So we're trying to, it's always about that girl. It's about her life. She's that one starfish that if we can save her, it's 100% change for her. And it's just that one at a time. But that's why also like in the Philippines, for example, we've really started upping our game in raids. That's where we start working with the NBI, the National Bureau of Investigation in the Philippines, and other agencies, where we'll set up raids. So now it's not just rescuing the one, but it's rescuing everyone in this establishment.
And I think that's where you make the real change, right, Marc? Because I guess
that's right.
Doing it one at a time, the one starfish at a time, you can only create so much impact when this is a multi-million person problem.
Yes.
And I guess that was my question, that how involved are these agencies to try and solve this problem? Because obviously it's a systemic issue.
Yes, it is. So they are really like over 18 years, we've really worked who to trust. And we've done in the beginning, unfortunately, we had in different countries, not mentioning any specific countries here,
sure.
But we had problems where we would try and organize raids and talk to local police. And unfortunately, somebody would go somewhere in that chain of command, not saying, it could even be staff there, would go and warn the establishment that was about to be raided, take a bribe and disappear. But these countries want to see the changes. So they've established these different police, whether it's local police agencies or federal police agencies. We've worked with the AFP, we've worked even with the FBI. Different organizations are trying to bring a halt to this.
Great.
So for example, in the Philippines, we've got in Thailand also, there's different federal agencies and groups that we really work closely with. And that's why we're seeing this increase in these raids happening. And I'll give you an example. With COVID, it's created lots of problems. We've had to really scramble with COVID, because although a lot of traveling has been stopped, what's happened is we've seen a spike in an increase in cyber abuse.
Sure.
So what's been happening is that through the dark web, pedophiles will basically go online through the dark web and basically become nearly directors of their own movie, and then will basically direct how somebody in the Philippines or wherever, how they've got to abuse their child. And they'll even buy pornographic material from these abusers of them abusing a child. And I'll give you a case in point. We started going into the cyber area, and our first cyber rescue happened in February, where in England, the police of England did a raid on a suspected pedophile's place, and they got hold of his phone, and on the phone was pornographic material of a 2-year-old boy being molested by his stepdad.
Oh.
And so they traced it that it was somewhere in the Philippines, but they didn't know where. So they got in contact with the NBI, the National Bureau of Investigation in the Philippines, and they got hold of us and said, okay, guys, can you help us with this? And so we actually we created a joint task force where the British police, the NBI, and us worked together. And so although we were already in the Philippines, we basically acted as if we were Dirty John, a pedophile out of Sydney, Australia, that wanted to go to the Philippines to abuse buy material and abuse this child. And this 2-year-old, sorry, my earpiece was full out. And so it took us quite a while, working and going onto the site. And our guys, they've had to look at this pornographic material, and it was real tough for them going through this. But finally, they organized a time. And this guy, he even wanted to see like airplane tickets and everything. But we were already on the ground there in the Philippines. So we did everything we needed to do. They got there, and we set up an appointment at a hotel. And we basically make sure that the foyer and everything was cleared off. So it was just the British police, that was the NBI agents and our agents, kind of just being there as if the hotel guests milling around in the foyer, and we set it up, and then this guy came and spoke. This stepdad came with his two-year-old boy, can you believe it, and brought him and handed him over for our guy to go up in the hotel room to abuse him, and took money. And that's when the agents all swooped in. We created a human barrier between him and the child, and he ended up going to jail, plus his wife, who was in on the game. And we were able to rescue this. But we've got four or five other cases we're working on. So same thing. So we've really seen an increase in that. Wow. And we've also got in the Philippines alone 20 raids that are just waiting to happen that we've been working on, and probably 70 in total in other parts of the other nations as well. So we've got a building that's building up at the moment for us to get involved with our raids. And unfortunately, finances is for us a key.
So, Marc, this is obviously an expensive process. It's very labor intensive. There's a lot of resources. There's a lot of planning. There's a lot of time required for execution. So have you worked out on average how much it costs per person that you save?
Yes. And these are average figures because our accountants are kind of average, sometimes higher, sometimes lower, but it averages out over all these rescues. So firstly, we've got the covert rescues where we go in and save children one at a time. And those just for the actual rescue cost us $1,500. That doesn't include the aftercare or anything like that. It's just $1,500. And then what we have is the like I said before, the raid rescues. Now the raid rescues, because it takes a lot of resources, and we can rescue anything but from like 2-3 at a time to the biggest raid rescue we had was 157 individuals in one night. So and the raid rescues on average works at about $10,000 per that. But you get way more rescues than just the one individual at a time.
And look, I think one of the key points of difference for you guys is the vocational training and essentially that rehabilitation to get these people back into and resuming their lives. Yes. Because I guess the biggest fear that I guess most people would have would be that these people are being taken out of this highly violent situation. They're taken back home wherever they are, and they just fall their way back into the same situation again as it's a vicious cycle. So how do you and the foundation work to try and ensure that you can break the cycle and get them resuming their life again?
Well, so what we do is it's through education, and our success rate is around the 85% of them not returning at all. And then the other 15% is some we've just lost contact over time, married, moved out of the area, so forth. But what's made us really successful for us is the whole thing that we focus on restoring them, but also showing them that there's life beyond what's happened to them, and showing them that there's a hope for them, and then also then giving them skill sets. And this is a real important part. So we'll connect with other groups. We'll do internally ourselves. Like internally, we've done we are doing training, for example. We try and give them the best training we can so that they can look after themselves, but also still keep on with the education. So we've got different organizations we work with. But for example, we'll have we'll train them to become beauticians. So now, when I say beauticians, it's a very broad term. Trained up to do hairdressing, to do up makeup, to do pedicures and manicures. Like one of our rescue centers where I went in, one of the girls, they were at that stage training to do nails, and I had my nails painted pink, and then they all hit the nail remover, and I had to walk around there for 2 days with these absolute purple nails. But hey, they had a good big kick out of that. But yeah, we train them up, and when they finish with their 2-year program with that, we help them establish, and if it's safe for them to go back to their villages, if it wasn't the parents' fault, we actually get them back to the villages. Now, just want to add a little difference here. We don't tell the parents what they got rescued out of, because some of these societies, they'll actually, the village will reject some of these girls if they find out what they were involved with. So we've got to protect the girls all the way through. So we'll just say we're a benevolent organization. They came across a path and we help train them, but it's up to the child whether they want to tell the parents what they were rescued out of. So, but we'll set them up where they can actually open their own little beautician business. We'll help them with the setup. We'll give them all the material they'll need, and the nail polishes and everything they'll need. And so that's been a real successful little program for us as well. But then we've also got other groups that we hook up with. I'll give you an example. I visited an organization in Phnom Penh where one of our rescue centers is, and there was this patisserie called Bloom Cafe. And this patisserie would take on girls that's come through our program and train them up to become patisserie chefs.
Great.
And I'll go through a 2-year training program with that. And Bloom Cafe actually came second or third in an international competition of that's how good they are. And I tell you, they are good. You can't maybe see it on the thing, but I'm a big boy. And their cupcakes and stuff were just absolutely brilliant. I couldn't have enough. My wife said, you pick up weight every time you but it was just awesome.
Hey?
Yeah. So, and they train up these girls to become fully fledged patisserie chefs and then employ them afterwards. But there's also other restaurants that would employ them. And then we've got other cases like, I'll just not real name once again, Rakana. Now, Rakana got rescued, and there was just nothing in our programs or even other social programs that looked like she really gelled with, right? But our social workers that we were working with her realized that could see in our off time, not because we help them with education and the language. Sorry, my earpiece fell right out.
That's all good.
Technical issues here. It's more user error, I think. But anyway, so with Rakana, what happened is they saw that off time she would sit there and she would draw, and she was really good at drawing, and so they realized that, and so we thought, wait a minute, this is the key for her, and so we paid for her to go to art school, and the art school was in the Japanese style of art.
Yeah, wow.
And so she went through the art school, really excelled, learned a lot of things, and she was a real hard worker, real extra time. Every extra time she had, she would be practicing, and she really excelled at that art school. And then what happened is a global production and an animation studio wanted to set up studios in this country that she was in. And what they did is we sent her for an interview, and they had a lot of people they interviewed, but they loved her and they took her on as an intern, and where she got further training. And after an internship, she got offered and she got a job as a digital animator.
Beautiful.
So
wow.
There's so many avenues that our girls go in. Like I said, I told you the story about the nurses, and even in the Philippines, we had a lady that she was rescued through our organization, got put through our training process, and she is now high up in marketing for a major firm. I think she's the marketing director of this major firm, and she actually started her own foundation, reaching out to street children.
Fantastic.
So we try and give them any possibility and education and vocational training that we make sure that they do not fall back into that, where they can choose their own destiny.
And this is about that breaking that cycle, and I think that's so important. And look, I think the cycle all starts with the funds, right? Because at the end of the day, you guys cannot make the difference unless you've got the means to do so.
Yes, so that's right.
What is the objective of the organization over the next 12 months? What are you trying to achieve?
Well, for us is because of what's happened with COVID, we've got wonderful supporters, but some of them have really gone through tough times. And we've made a point of phoning all our donors and find out where they are, and also just to tell them, listen, if you're in financial stress, don't we know you love us, we know you're supporting us, but you first got to look after your own family. So we've had those unfortunate side effects of COVID. What's happened? So our thing is to spread the word, like what I'm doing on the show, is spread the word and tell people who we are. Like, I think we're one of the best kept secrets here in Australia. Been going for over 18 years, but is looking for donations. So we're looking for either people giving one-off donations, for businesses getting involved, because there's a lot of businesses that realize, modern day businesses, where businesses want to be socially relevant, want to have an impact. Yes, they want to make money for and look after their employees and also make money for their families, etc., and grow a business. But they also want to have a social impact. Exactly. And so we are trying to get across those paths of those businesses and say, listen, this is a great social impact that you can have within and change children's lives and their destiny forever. And then there's also individuals that obviously donate to us. We're a tier 1 not-for-profit, so all donations. So we're registered with the government, and all profits are tax deductible. And obviously, I'm not giving you financial service advice here, please. A little disclaimer. You've got to talk to your accountants to work it out. But yes, and so how people can give is they can go onto our website to give. and they can pick the one-off donation, or they can become a rescue partner. Rescue partnership really helps us. It helps us with cash flow. So people go, whether it's corporations or individuals, they can go, you know what, I can give X amount every month, and that helps them generates cash flow for us over that period of time that they're in there over the next year or 2 years, or however long they want to stay in there. And then there's also another area is workplace giving, where certain companies can say, you know what, we really want to help you, but we're going to offer this to all our employees, and then they can choose whether they want to join in the workplace giving.
Beautiful.
But if anybody wants to, if you please don't mind, give my email to anybody that's interested and want to help further. I'll gladly talk to them. And I'll also send you a link, a donation link that people
please
can
do,
click.
Marc. All of those details, guys, it'll be in the description. And look, I think there are so many great causes out there, but I think something like this has a complete end-to-end impact where it fundamentally changes the trajectory of people's lives. And I think the extent and the significance of this problem is something that we all have a responsibility to do something about. So as a small business owner, it's about profit, but it's also about purpose. We can still benefit, we can still achieve our goals, but it also feels really good to give back as well. So Marc, mate, I really appreciate everything that you've shared today. It's been a really great insight, far beyond many of the things that many of us have even thought about in our day-to-day. I know we've all got our own problems at the moment with what's happening in COVID-19. Yes. However, we need to stick together. So we look forward to supporting the organisation and hopefully having our community support you guys as well. So, mate, I appreciate you making the time. So, guys, if you do want to get in contact with Marc, want to get support the cause, details in the description below. Make sure that you get in touch, and anything counts. Once again, one starfish makes all the difference for that starfish that's getting thrown back in the ocean. So I appreciate it, mate. Thank you very much for your time. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, and thanks for giving a voice to people like ourselves and what you do in the business community. I really appreciate you. Thank you so much.
Happy to support. Thanks, mate.